Welcome everyone to One World Energy Encounter with the Zohar. This week's portion is Bereshit. It's Genesis. It's the creation story, and so this is the seed level of reality for us, of our reality. There is another reality. It's the reality of the upper world, and it is part of this creation, but there are limits to what we can humanly conceive of. And while we're on the topic of what we can humanly conceive of, let's just keep in mind that there's a war going on. It's a very it's a very high visibility war because of the nature of how information is shared these days over the internet and over other media, and so we're all getting a front row seat, and it's also, there's a lot of emotional conflict involved. And so part of what we need to do, and I just listened to David Guillaume speak to this specifically, part of what we need to do is, first of all, have those human feelings. We need to feel the things that we're feeling, whatever it is. How we act upon it is something else, because we all know from our studies of Kabbalah that we want to restrict those emotional reactions, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to feel things. Feeling things is very important. And as David Guillaume pointed out, when we are suffering, we are growing spiritually. Part of the reason why suffering comes to us is to assist us in expanding our vessel, is to assist us in having greater compassion, and to assist us in growing spiritually. So whatever it is that we're experiencing, it's to assist us in growing spiritually. It's always the case. It's just not easy to see it when they're in the midst of an emotional reaction. So let's invite in the Rav and Karen and Michael, Rabbi Shalach, Brandwein, the Ariya Kodesh, the Ramchal, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Mezulai, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Tepsk, Rav Kolonim Shapira Piasetzon, the Baal Shem Tov, Rav Shimon Bar Chai and all the students, Rav Mordechai of Chernobyl, One Soul with Yosef Tzadik in Shechem. There are no anniversaries of elevation today, but tomorrow is the anniversary of elevation of Shimon the Righteous from the Shi'arei Knesset Hagadola. So we will have his assistance tonight. Also, tomorrow night is the new moon of Mar Cheshvan. And so we have that going on also. That's the month of Scorpio. So that new moon starts Saturday night and continues on to Sunday and Monday. It's a 2-day new moon. So a lot on the calendar over the next couple of days.
When is Abner coming? Which new moon? Oh, Abner, that's what the full moon.
Yeah, Abner's not coming for another couple of weeks. I don't think it's new moon.
It's for the full moon, right?
I want to say it's November 5th.
Okay,
It is November 5th. It's not tied into a new moon. It's an all-day seminar. Pick your word. That the information is just,
the information is just coming. The information is just coming out now, so you should see that soon.
Okay.
So we want, as we connect to these verses, to have a consciousness of connecting to the flawless universe. And in the context of that, we are channeling the energy of healing for everyone who needs healing. And certainly there are many injuries that have taken place over in the conflict. And so we want to send them energy of healing, and also those that are experiencing tremendous emotional burdens and pain. We want to send them energy of healing also. We also want to send energy of assistance and elevation to all those souls that are transitioning. And also all the souls that we know that are transitioning, Chaimer ben Alta Avram, and also healing for all those that we know personally that need healing. We also want to very importantly, connect to the energy of treating everyone with human decency, of also ahavat chinam, unconditional love, and removal of negativity from our world, and protection from evil eye and evil speech, and also protection from any kind of physical or emotional violence that's out there. Okay, anyone want to volunteer to read English for us today? Roshin, can you read for us?
Two days in a row. Oh my God.
All right, wait. Maria did have her hand up. Roshan, that's okay. Maria, if you don't mind me, I didn't see it.
Good day.
I saw peripherally.
It's
Were
okay.
you reading this first, Maria?
Sure.
Okay, great. Okay, we're in verse 137. Ein sof leit bei reshuma kalal, v'lal talya sha'elta bei, v'la rayona le'istakluta de machshava kalal, migoistima distima, meresh nechetu de ein sof, nihir da kik, v'la yedi'ah, satim birshimu kechiduda de machata, razastima de machshava, v'la yedi'ah adit peshat nihiru mine. Ba'atarti it be rishimin, the advan kulho mitaman nafkan. Maria?
The endless light has no mark on it to grasp. It is not subject to any questions or mental formulation.
Okay, so this section is dealing with Ein Sof, which literally means no end, which we understand as infinity, but is translated as the endless light, because ultimately that's what it is, the endless light. And there's a lot to be said about this topic. First of all, at a very basic level, there are things that are going on that we will not understand. We won't understand them. There are limits to human mental capacities. There's limits to what we can understand. And that goes with day-to-day life. I mean, we're perceiving 1% of the world with our mental faculties and our five senses. And so we see things that don't make sense. Now, we also know from Kabbalah 1 that there are two levels of consciousness. There's the consciousness of the tree of life, and there's the consciousness of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And one of the things that happened as a result of the original sin was we connected to the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And that's why so often we're stuck with this body consciousness of right and wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. And that's a very limiting consciousness. By contrast, when we connect to the tree of light, the tree of life, when we're connecting to the light, when we're connecting to our soul, we're connecting to unlimited. And that's why we're always talking about we have to do things above logic, because logic only gets you so far. Before we had an understanding of quantum mechanics, of quantum physics, there were things that went on all the time we didn't have an understanding. Then we realized, you know what? We don't understand how these operate because there are rules even within physics that had to be further developed. So there are always going to be things that we don't understand. Because we live in a finite world, anything that continues that is infinite is beyond human conception. It's like it falls into this box of infinity, of endless light. And that's why the Zohar says there's no mark on it to grasp. There's no handle. I can't get a handle on it. That's the expression, right? I literally can't get a handle on that. Yeah, there's no handle to grasp. There is no mark. It defies description. And by the way, related to this is this idea that, like, imagine you have a dream and you're trying to explain the dream. I can't really explain it because it wasn't a shared experience. It was my own experience. I can tell you what happened. I can't tell you what it was like. Like, there aren't words because it's a soul experience. It's an individualized soul experience. So there are things that go around that we do taste, that we do perceive, shards of light that are reflective of a world beyond what we can consciously wrap our heads around, get a handle on. So it does, and part of what we need to do is we still need to feel those feelings. We still need to think about those things to the degree that we can, because it helps us connect to our soul. Like, there is no logic to this idea of soul. I mean, we come up with ways to, explain the logic behind soul, but it's above logic. Soul is above logic. And so is inner energy intelligence. Also, it's beyond logic. Because science isn't there. That's why the Rav is always saying, Kabbalah is like, future science. He didn't say those words. He'd say it was, 2030 or 40 or 60. Science. It's future, it's science fiction. It's not fiction, it's true. But it's beyond, science is really based on the scientific method. It's what can be proven in a lab. So what can't be proven in a lab doesn't mean it's not true. It's just not science-based, because science is limited. The lab is a box. And if you can't test it in that box, science can't really speak to it. Science can't speak to soul because soul doesn't fit into the scientific method. And we're scratching the surface of that world beyond with quantum mechanics, with this idea that all things are connected, that we're all connected, even though we perceive a world of fragmentation. So this goes back to the seed level, because before creation, everything was obviously connected, and there was light in every speck, the same degree of light in every speck of reality. And we don't perceive that. We perceive fragmentation, we perceive light and dark, good and bad, positive and negative. We perceive all those things because we are locked into a body consciousness. Our soul literally is locked into our body, a body consciousness, and we're perceiving the world through that very limited scope of our five senses. So part of what we're always trying to do is rise above our five senses. First, understand that there is a world beyond our five senses, and then try and connect to it so we can connect to a deeper reality. And so at a very simple level, when we connect to the seed level, when we connect to these verses of Bereshit, of Genesis, we are connecting to that seed level. And the other thing that this line says is, it's not subject to any question or mental formulation. You can't, we have to just wrap it. It's just beyond human conception. It's like, there are things we know, there are things we, I can floss. There are things I don't know how to do root canal. And there are the things that I don't know that I don't know. And I can't tell you what those are because I don't know what they are. So we throw them together in this idea of endless light. Now, the other thing that's important to point out is so much of the tools that we connect to are channels to that endless light. The Zohar is a channel to the endless light, to the hidden light, to the level of Binah. So as we're connecting to it, and we want to have a consciousness of channeling blessings, energy of healing, energy of protection, energy of ending conflict, we can't perceive that with our five senses, but we can forge that connection with our consciousness. Today is Friday, so tonight we're going to transition from weekday to Shabbat. You can look at it like it's a different day, it is, or we can look at it like it's a different energy. It's like an energy vortex within our reality. That's different than the rest of the week. That 25-hour period is a different soup that we're swimming in. And we have to connect to it with our consciousness, because physically it looks the same. although sometimes I'm really not sure it does, because it does feel different. And we have the capacity to feel that different energy. And as I like to point out, one of the reasons why we do this class midday Friday is because at midday Friday, the energy of Shabbat is already infusing our cosmos, our reality, our time, our space. And today, Central Time, that is at 12:36, and it's 12:37. So, poof, we're there. It's already infusing our reality, the energy of Shabbat, and it's going to be increasing with intensity up until the time for candle lighting, which again, local time is approximately 5:57, 5:58, depending on where you are. So we're already feeling that energy. And one of the reasons why people like to start disengaging from the work week is so that they can more connect with that energy that's available, to make a stronger connection to that energy. So we want to be thinking that we want to have that consciousness of that this energy is available, and I want to start connecting to that energy. And what is that energy? What is that's available to us? It's the endless light. It's the upper realm. It's the reservoir of fulfillment. It's the Garden of Eden, which we will be connecting to also tomorrow morning when we do the reading of Bereshit. We are connected. And it's so important because right now there appears to be so much chaos and negativity and pain and suffering in the world. And so how do we deal with that? By plugging into the news cycle? I don't think so. I don't think that's helping. That's just stirring up all this reactive energy. No, we want to plug into positivity. When it's dark, you want to light the candle. How do we remove darkness from our world? By channeling more positivity, more endless light. And that must be why we're reading this section, because we are literally starting at a fundamental seed level with the endless light that we want to channel into our world. Any questions about that? So again, it's important to feel our feelings, to not numb ourselves to what's going on. It's also important to not overwhelm ourselves with what's going on. We only need to take on what we're feeling and to feel those feelings and to process them. It's a barrage of information. And when we get triggered, that's work we need to do. We need to stay in that space for a little bit and just feel that and then move on, process it, and then move beyond that. So we can connect to the energy of positivity and the light and do it with a greater vessel. And when we process those feelings, we are expanding our vessel. So we have a greater capacity to channel light. We move from an 8-ounce cup to a 12-ounce cup. So we can handle more light. Okay, keep going.
From within this most concealed of all concealed things, with the beginning of the descent of the endless light, for the purpose of being seen, a thin, almost imperceptible light shone.
Okay, so this is going to the creation story where, so this light, this endless light, this completely healing and fulfilling light is concealed. It's the Or HaGanuz. It's the concealed light. Do we have access to it? Yes, we do. We're connecting to it right now. We're literally connecting to it right now with this Zohar and with this consciousness. Okay, keep going.
It was concealed by a fragile imprint, as delicate as a needle point.
It's infant. How big is a needle point? Very tall, very tiny. Does it matter though? It's a fascinating metaphor. Does it matter how big it is? If it's unlimited? One way of thinking about this, is there really a difference between swimming in 6 feet of water versus 12 feet of water? It's twice the water, twice the depth. Does it matter? You're only on the surface anyhow.
Actually, it does matter in the context of a competitive swimmer, right? Because the deeper, the more water in place, the less resistance actually exists, right? Because when there's less water, you create waves, you create more resistance.
So there's more water to absorb the resistance that you're creating.
Correct.
Do you swim faster or slower in greater water?
Faster. You want deeper water. You want more water.
Well, more interesting. Okay, fascinating.
Yeah, actually, the other interesting thing is most pools are designed where there's a shallow end and a deep end, right? So if you're swimming underwater, right, the pressure is greater in the deeper part than the shallower part, right? So what actually happens is if you try to swim more than one length going back and forth, you're actually putting pressure and expanding your lungs, right? So again, I think these ideas are really spiritual in concept as you think about the physical manifestation.
Because resistance helps us grow. Resistance with us against the water helps us build swimmer's muscles, for one thing.
Well, and if you actually expand it, what everyone does in one of the main training methods for multiple sports is to train at altitude, where the air is thinner and you build up the strength.
That's right. Our body has to work harder to get oxygen. So, that's why it's always hard to play in Denver, Mile High Stadium. Yeah. But think about it. What's the difference between having a handful of infinity and a bottle full? It's infinity. It's unlimited. So it's being expressed as a needle point, but ultimately it's the light. It's endless light. It's hard. It's a paradox. What's greater, infinity or infinity plus one? There's no such thing as infinity plus one. It's infinity. It's unlimited. But we have a hard time conceiving of that. That's why the infinity plus one sounds like it's more. Because we are, through body consciousness, tied in to a finite world where we perceive finiteness when the deeper reality is infiniteness. So our tools are connecting to this. When Shabbat starts at candle lighting, why are we bringing in the Shabbat with candlelight? Well, candles do exhibit properties that run in opposition to physicality. Gravity pulls everything down in physicality. Our ego pulls everything in physicality. The ultimate desire to receive for the self is gravity. But yet candlelight moves opposite that, moves up. For no apparent reason.
So it's with that information, what you just said, with candle lighting, at that moment, it's where we detach from that gravity of this physicality, and our energy elevates, help us elevate.
We're connecting to the flawless universe. We're making the strongest connection of the week to the flawless universe. We're over, Satan doesn't have the same control over us on Shabbat than Satan has during the week. The playing field is tilted in the Satan's advantage during the 6 days of the week, not on Shabbat. So it's easier for us to make that soul connection, which is why we have restrictions. The restrictions give us more of an opportunity to make a soul connection. There's also a whole thing about candlelight. There's another Zohar, we're not doing it, but about why candlelight connects us to the light of fire. And so we start, interestingly enough, Shabbat with a minimum of 2 candles. And we also end Shabbat with a candle. But that candle is a braided candle. There are separate lights, but they're braided together. And again, it's like we want to take this energy of unity into the week ahead. So like these are things that we connect to that are, I mean, sit in a room with candlelight, it feels spooky. There's an energy. Do some self-care, take a bath, which is by candlelight.
It's good.
Yeah, it's a very soothing, soulful experience. Okay, keep going.
Thus, although a tiny slit was opened, it was insufficient for the light to be grasped. This is the secret of the concealed thought. It remained unknown until an illumination extended from it to the place on which the letters were imprinted. Everything emerged from there.
Okay, so we have this connection to the flawless universe, and then there's this idea, what are the tools? A power drill? Better. Letters. Oh, come on, they're just letters. They're not just letters. They're channels to the upper realm. Each of the 22 letters of the Aramaic, what we know to be the Aramaic alphabet, each of those 22 letters has a unique connection to the light of the upper realm. 138. V'reish kol aleph, reisha v'sofa d'chol dargim, rishimut it rishim be, dargim kol hu, ho. V'la'ikre ele echad, l'chaza'a da'af al gav d'it be d'yoknin sagi'in, lav ihu el echad, v'adai ihu et d'ila'in v'tata'in talyan be.
In the beginning, the letter Aleph, which is in the beginning and the end of all the grades, was inscribed.
Okay, so the first letter of the 22 letters is the letter Aleph. And you can see it in the Aramaic, it's an oversized letter. It's like where the third word would be in our Aramaic text. I want to point something out about the Aleph. It's fascinating. It's made of 3 letters. There's a diagonal line, which is a Vav, and there's a Yud coming out of one side and a Yud coming out of the other side. The Yuds are 10 each, is 20. The Vav is 6. It's 26. It's the same numerical value as the Tetragrammaton, which is Yud K Vav K, which is also 26. So, and what does that mean? Well, that is a connection to the Tetragrammaton, which we call Shem Hashem, the name of the Creator. But we don't pronounce it, of course. We pronounce it using a different name. But what it represents is this little microcosm of reality, because all 10 sfirot, all 10 levels of energy that come from Ein Sof, that come from the flawless universe, find their way into our universe, into our world, through that dynamic of those letters. So again, this is really deep because we've studied this before in different ways, but it's helping us wrap our head around the construct of our reality. And when we wrap our heads around, or when we taste of this construct of reality, we are making a connection to that deeper reality. We're making a connection to the flawless universe, to the HVAC system, heating, ventilation, air conditioning of reality. How everything, I mean, we look at HVAC, the reason why I always go to HVAC because that's what pumps air into our structures, into our vessels. Hot air, cold air, regular air, that's, or just ventilation. That's the system that pumps air in. And when we look at our world, it looks stagnant. But everything we're perceiving is energy coming from the upper realm. There is nothing here. This is the moon. It has no light of its own. The light of the moon literally comes from the sun. And that's why we always refer to the metaphor of sun and moon to Zeranpin and Malchut, to the upper realm and our realm. It's desolate. It's a vessel. That's it. Everything we're perceiving is flowing from the upper realm. I know, but David, I'm looking around and nothing's flowing. Everything is pretty much stagnant. Yes, that's what our five senses and limited mental capacity tell us. That's what we perceive. But there's energy in everything. It's all energy. And by definition, energy flows. It's so much of an energy flow, it's beyond human comprehension. And so ultimately, we are energy workers. That's right. We're working with energy because I do perceive a world that's stagnant. Okay, you're telling me it's energy, and I do perceive lack. Yes, there are lacks, but the energy is there. It's just not manifest. And so the more pull we have on this energy flow, the more energy of fulfillment we can bring into our realm. But there's a catch. It's consciousness. It can't happen if we don't think it can. And that's where certainty comes in. And again, understanding and delving into these holy writings, the Zohar, is what helps us to expand our conscious and helps us to develop greater certainty about this deeper reality. And so the other thing that we're getting out of this is an expansion of our consciousness and an expansion and growth of our certainty. Because the more certainty we have, the bigger straw we have to pull all that energy down into this realm. Because ultimately, what's blocking us is us. That's why the whole battle is taking place here. It's the battle of Gog and Magog. It's the battle of thoughts. It's the battle of consciousness. And as I've said a couple of times this week, none of us, as far as I know, is picking up arms and going to the front. Oh, but we are at the front. We're literally at the front lines. This is it. This is the battle. It's your consciousness. Yes, Ron.
Just a quick note about what you just said. So I was in a class with Marcus Weston this week, and he said, your thoughts and your words are literally creating worlds, right? So like, if you think it's going to happen, it's going to happen. If you think it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen. That's how powerful our consciousness is.
So well said. So when I look at a situation, I say impossible, I need to go beyond logic. There's no such thing as impossible. You mean light can go on space goes on forever? That is not logical. There must be an end to space. There isn't. It's infinity. Like, I need to be able to elevate my consciousness to be open to above logic. And that's why we need to think above and beyond logic. We need to be open to any possibility, that it can change in an instant. David, really? Change in an instant? Seriously? Yes, it can change in an instant. Anything, any challenge we're in, any process we're in, any lack that we feel can change in an instant. Well, if it can change in an instant, I really probably should chill. Yes, you should chill a little bit, because it could change in an instant. It may have already changed. We haven't gotten the text yet, or the email, or the phone call. Or maybe we did, we just didn't read it right. So again, so important to maintain an open consciousness and understand, remind ourselves, yeah, there's limits to what I can really logically think and conceive. But we all have a level of creativity where we can look beyond logic. And that's where we need to be. That doesn't mean ignoring physicality. You still have to pay your rent. But, we have to abide by certain physical rules, but my consciousness can be otherwise. David Gam shared that, like, if you're going to give, like, send supplies towards, areas in need, if you're doing it from a position of like hatred, it isn't going to work. Whatever is you need, it'll get stuck at customs. It's not going to make it there, whatever you're sending. But we have a consciousness of sharing, of unconditional love, of ending pain and suffering in the world. That makes it through. The universe will assist that in getting through. And so as we make these connections and we think about the pain and suffering in the world, we're sending energy of healing, of fulfillment, of the time of the end of pain and suffering in the world, of the time of Bila Mavel and Etzach, of the death of death. All these things are above logic, and that's where we need to be. And that's us, because I don't know who else is talking about that. That's us in this study. That's us on this Kabbalistic path. Okay, keep going. We didn't finish that one. Keep going.
No. Although it is in the imprint on which the upper and lower grades were imprinted, it is still referred to in this singular as echad.
So this is again a reminder that even though we perceive fragmentation in our world, it's all connected, it's all one, it's all unified. And that's why we're always striving for unity. Yeah, because we want it, but yeah, because that is the deeper reality. I mean, think about it. We walk around making judgments about people just based on appearance. You can't. How do you not? I mean, we're so visual. But it's a surface. It's like the old saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Where on a deeper level, we all want the same things. We all want fulfillment. We all want health. We want peace. We want unconditional love. We want unconditional happiness. So David also made the comment, well, what about a terrorist? They don't have free will. They don't have free will. It's a different category. They're almost like, when you don't have free will, you're kind of like a robot.
Because they're like possessed.
They're possessed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. They've given over control of the control tower to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what happens when we get angry and we get hateful and we get vengeful. We're giving over control to the other side. That's what the other side wants, to take our light. And that's why this is the battle over consciousness. Okay, keep going.
Which means that the Aleph is 1 in numerical value.
Yes.
It teaches us that although it contains many forms and includes all the grades, it remains only 1. Thus, all the grades are as 1 in it. Assuredly, the letter Aleph is the letter upon which the upper and the lower world beings depend.
Okay. So, there's a lot more we can say about that. We're out of time, but I think the takeaway for us is, in the face of all this negativity in the world, in the face of the hate that we see, we're gonna feel that it's gonna affect us. We need to be with that energy, and then we need to find a way to process it and move beyond it and reconnect to that higher consciousness, to that desire to channel light into this world. And through that channeling of light and that unconditional love and that treating everyone with human decency, these are the ways. That's a consciousness that we need to be present to, because the more of us are present to it, the more it manifests in this world. Okay, everybody. Love you all. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shalom. Shalom.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom to you.
Coach,
Hello.
Talk soon.